Two pieces of metal, a wooden stake, damp soil, and an invisible boundary that insects simply will not cross. You can construct this for about $20, and after that, the rain runs the entire system for free. The pest control industry currently generates $5.5 billion every year selling you various sprays that only last for 3 hours, products that were originally formulated as chemical weapons for jungle warfare. What I am about to show you was buried, not because it failed to work, but because nobody could figure out a way to charge you a monthly fee for dirt and copper wire. Here is the exact build, including every material, every measurement, where to get them, and how to put it all together today. Then I will walk you through the 2015 German lab study that proves the mechanism and the 270-year history of how this knowledge was erased by one of the most cynical corporate pivots of the 20th century. The build itself is simple, requiring only two materials. First, you need bare 16-gauge copper wire. You can search for electroculture copper wire on Amazon. 1-pound spools of 99.9% pure copper, which are somewhere between 125 and 130 feet long, run about $13 to $15. One spool builds multiple stakes with wire left over for years. The second thing you need is galvanized steel wire. The galvanized coating is zinc, and that zinc is your reactive electrode. A 100-foot roll of 14-gauge wire at Home Depot runs between $8 and $10. You also need bamboo stakes or wooden dowels, roughly 3 feet long. A pack of 10 at any garden center runs about $5. The total for everything comes to around $20 to $25, and that gets you 3 complete stakes with wire to spare. Here is how you put it together. Wrap 3 feet of copper wire in a loose spiral around the lower portion of one stake. Wrap 3 feet of zinc wire around the same stake in the same pattern. Both metals need to contact the soil when the stake goes in, but they should not touch each other above the ground. Drive the stake 6 to 12 inches into damp soil. Moisture is everything here. It is the electrolyte that activates the whole reaction. Dry soil does nothing. Pour water around the base to get it started, and rain recharges it automatically from that point on. You do nothing else. For a campsite, build 3 stakes and position them in a triangle. Place one near your tent, one near your cooking area, and one near your fire. That covers roughly 225 square feet. For standing water, rain barrels, bird baths, puddles, or any spot that does not drain, drop a loose coil of bare copper wire directly into the water and leave it there. Based on the research I am about to show you, that alone achieves near total mosquito larval mortality without a single toxic compound. Something happened on my own property before I understood any of the science, and it is worth sharing because it is what sent me down this rabbit hole in the first place. Last July, I had 2 rain barrels running. One sits near the copper downspout. Water flows across the metal, flashing on my roof before it ever hits that barrel. The other is pure plastic, straight in from a different downspout. By midsummer, the plastic barrel was a mosquito hatchery. I was dumping and scrubbing it every 3 days just to keep up. The copper-fed barrel stayed clean the entire season. Not once did I see larvae in it. I genuinely thought it was luck or a difference in sun exposure. Then I found the Becker study, and it stopped me cold. Copper residue leaching off that roof flashing was doing exactly what the lab data would later confirm. I had the answer sitting on my roof for years and had absolutely no idea. That is how buried this knowledge actually is. Now, the history behind this is genuinely fascinating, and it deserves a few minutes because it changes how you see the whole story. Start in Paris, 1747. Abbé Jean-Antoine Nollet, personal physicist to King Louis XV, the man who once sent an electric shock through a chain of 200 monks just to prove electricity travels through human bodies, sets up the simplest possible experiment. 2 identical pots of soil, same seeds, same sunlight, same water. One variable, one pot receives electrical current for 10 hours a day. Within 3 days, the results are not subtle. The electrified seeds have broken through the soil. The control seeds have not cracked their shells. But buried in his notes, almost as an afterthought, is something else entirely. Small flies congregate freely around the uncharged pot. The electrified one sits in what Nollet describes as a zone of isolation. Insects hover at the edge and turn back as if hitting a wall that is not there. He did not theorize about why, He just recorded what he saw. Then the scientific establishment filed it away for the next 94 years. Edinburgh, 1841. Alexander Bain was a clockmaker who needed cheap electricity and had no patience for expensive solutions. His idea, one copper plate and one zinc plate buried in wet soil behind his workshop, connected by a wire above ground. He checked the voltmeter, 1 volt. No acid, no generator, no chemical bath. Moisture in the soil acts as a natural electrolyte. Zinc gives up electrons, copper collects them, and current flows continuously. He called it the Earth Battery. It powered his clocks for months without a single intervention. And almost as a footnote in his notes, the biting flies around his workshop had completely disappeared. A Scottish landowner named Robert Foster read about it and ran a copper and zinc network across his barley fields near Elgin. Published in the British Cultivator in March of 1845, pest damage was near zero, no aphids, no beetles. Workers reported that clouds of biting insects, which normally descended on them at dusk, halted at the edge of the treated fields and turned back. The Royal Society called the findings remarkable, and then nothing. Documented, consistent, and completely ignored. Then the 1920s. A French engineer named Justin Christofleau builds what must have looked completely insane to his neighbors. A 25-foot post topped with spiraling copper and zinc wire, with below-ground wires fanning out into damp soil. The whole structure aligned north to south along the Earth's magnetic field. His oat crops grew over 7 feet tall without a gram of artificial fertilizer. Grapevines that had been destroyed by the phylloxera plague recovered completely and produced heavy harvests. Insect pests were eliminated. No chemicals, no sprays. He sold 150,000 units across Europe. Entire farms were running pest-free on nothing but copper, zinc, and wet earth. So why have you never heard of this until right now? In 1912, an international scientific conference reviewed the accumulated evidence for electroculture. The consensus was clear. It works, the science is real, and large-scale adoption was being seriously discussed. Then 1914 happened. The war tore through European agriculture and physically destroyed the electroculture infrastructure that had been built across the continent. When the fighting stopped, munitions factories had massive industrial capacity, enormous chemical stockpiles, and no market. Ammonium nitrate, the base of high explosives, became nitrogen fertilizer. Organophosphate nerve agents were reformulated as insecticides. The chemical industry did not just enter agriculture, it consumed it. The Earth Battery was not disproven, it was not debunked. It was made economically irrelevant. One observer at the time captured it perfectly. They did not abandon it because it did not work. They buried it because it worked too well, cost too little, and lasted too long. It did not just repel insects, it repelled profit. $5.5 billion a year built entirely on solutions that expire. You buy a can, it lasts 3 hours, the bugs come back, you buy another can. A $20 device recharged by rain every time it rains has no place in that revenue model, which is exactly why you are hearing about this here and not from anyone with a marketing budget. Now here is the modern science that ties all of this together. In 2015, Dr. Norbert Becker at the German Mosquito Control Association in Heidelberg published a study in the journal Parasites and Vectors. His team seeded containers with mosquito larvae, the same standing water where dengue and Zika vectors breed in cities around the world, and introduced metallic copper in different forms, euro coins, copper tubing, and a thin metallic copper spray applied inside the containers. The results confirmed 270 years of documented field observation. Copper ions released into water achieve near-complete larval mortality. The mechanism is both physical and chemical. Copper and zinc ions are toxic to soft-bodied larvae and disrupt the biological processes that allow them to develop. And here is what makes this fundamentally different from every spray on the shelf. Insects cannot develop resistance to metal ions the way they develop resistance to synthetic chemicals. The physics does not change. The metal does not expire. The rain keeps recharging it. One last thing before you go. Take whatever copper wire you have left over from building your stakes and drop a loose coil into every standing water source on your property. Rain barrels, bird baths, that low spot in the lawn that never fully drains. or any container you cannot dump every 3 days. The copper ions are released continuously into the water, and based on the Becker data, you are looking at near-complete larval mortality within 24 to 72 hours. No DEET, no mosquito dunks, no monthly treatments. Just coil the wire, drop it in, and walk away. If this story has changed the way you look at the simple materials in your garden, please subscribe and like the channel. We are dedicated to excavating the history that they have tried to bury. Let's plant the seeds for a better future together. The next hidden treasure of knowledge will be revealed very soon.